You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host, Keith Engel, on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody. Keith Engel for TGI Sports Talk. It's January 1st, 2021. And the year 2020 is finally behind us. And I want to leave it something as we go. When we say hello to a brand new year with all kinds of possibilities, let's say goodbye to 2020. About all I can say. Been a tough year, right, guys? I know it's been tough for some of you more than others. So 2021, let's start it out with a bright new outlook. And it's going to be a great year for all of us, I think. We just got to keep a positive attitude. With that in mind, I want to thank my guest from a couple of weeks ago. I didn't do a live show on Christmas Day, but 2 weeks ago, my guest was Todd Stottlemyre. His book, The Observer, is out today. If you want to talk to a guy or listen or read about a guy with a great attitude about life, Todd Stottlemyre is your guy. Former Major League Baseball player, took all his experiences, a lot of them through his life from a child, through, his days as a player and past those days. And really has got that down on paper to be able to share with others, and really has a great book. So I'm halfway through the book, and I plan on finishing it this weekend. So it's a great book, The Observer. You can get it on Amazon, on Kindle. I think it's on Audible, if you like Audibles, and certainly you can buy the book to have in your hand. So we'll start the new year again, thanking all the groups that allowed me to share all the baseball, the football, the basketball, both professional and college, that let me share my show and my content with them. So I want to thank them for helping to make this show a success, and continue to do so. Again, if you get this in your group today, there'll be some content that applies to you. It's really a bright, beautiful day here in East Greenbush. I think the temperature is going to be in the mid 40s today. I'm not sure. Right now, it's actually a balmy 23, but it's beautiful outside. I took a little walk for a quick second. It was beautiful out. Also, I want to mention that TGI Sports Talk, as I said last week, has joined into not a partnership. I guess a partnership is a good term, with some other shows on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. That's as you can see up in my new graphic on the right or left-hand side. I always get confused. I guess that's my left. So it might be your left. Not sure. Might be your right. It doesn't really matter. Playing around with the name a little bit. There's some other great shows that have joined there. Please go there, like the shows, follow the page, and you'll be notified of those shows as well. There'll be a lot more joining. I haven't even watched them all yet myself. I plan to, so I'm excited to join that this network of shows just to get more exposure and grow our followers, which you guys have actually been a big part of, or the part of. So I thank all of you as well who watch the show religiously on Fridays and Sundays, and the vlogs that I do during the week. And also watch it when it's not live, because that's important too. The views are very important. This isn't an avocation for me. I'm sorry, it's not a vocation for me. It's an avocation. So I'm having fun. I want to continue to have fun. And we welcome 2021. So my guest today is Dr. Lloyd Walton, former All-American guard with Marquette. He's now the senior career counselor with the NBA Players Association. We recorded this interview a few weeks ago because Lloyd is getting very busy with the start of the NBA season, as you might imagine, and some time difference issues as well. But Lloyd's somebody that I followed when I was a youngster, just learning about NBA, college basketball, NCAA basketball. He played at Marquette under the legendary Al McGuire. couple tremendous years there, always in the top 10. I want to say that he didn't lose, but gosh, I had a note here. He probably didn't lose 10 games his entire college career. And they went to the finals in 75 against the 74-75 season against a tremendous NC State team. And that game is a story in itself. Al McGuire is a story in itself. Lloyd Walton's story is tremendous in itself. He's only the third NBA player ever to get his doctorate. And that's a tremendous achievement. And his story is an interesting story. And I found out during the course of this interview that he's got a book coming out soon, which we'll certainly be talking about on this show, and hopefully have Lloyd back on to talk about it. So the show is recorded, as I said. We're going to play it now for you. And then I'm going to be back at the end to wrap up the show, talk a little bit about Sunday's show and next week's show. So bear with me for a second while I get this up and running. Shouldn't take but a second unless I screw it up. Yep. Well, that was certainly loud. As I said in my intro, my guest today is Lloyd Walton, Dr. Lloyd Walton, I'm sorry. Former All-American guard at Marquette University, NBA player, currently help me out. What was your specific title?
Actually, senior career counselor for the NBA and the NBA Players Association.
There you go. That's what I was. I knew I had that here somewhere, and I appreciate you for jumping in. I know what you do is very important. As I said a second ago, I'm going to jump around a little bit, Lloyd, because what you've done in your career is really exceptional. If I'm not mistaken, because I'm going to start here kind of in the present or semi-present, you've done what very few NBA players have done as far as getting your doctorate. Am I correct in that?
I'm actually only the third player in the history of the NBA to earn a doctorate degree.
That's very impressive. And it's in organizational leadership or?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I suppose that plays into your role with the NBA Players Association today.
Well, let's say this. They haven't made me the executive director. So having a doctorate, let me just share this with you. My desire to get a doctorate was solely based on two things. One was I felt education was very, very important, and I wanted to be able to do something that most people doubt athletes can do. Okay, and I remember I think it was my fourth grade teacher saying that to our coach, and I'm just passing by. All they want to do is play ball. They really can't learn. So that still resonates with me today. And then it was in honor of my grandmother, who passed away at 96, but she loved school, but she couldn't go to school. Well, she had to drop out in the third grade because she had to go work in the cotton fields and help with the family. So it was in honor of her and her sisters and what have you, that education is important. And then when I think about it, I played in the NBA. That's the highest level. I got a doctorate degree. That's the highest level. My grandkids can't say school is not important.
Oh, that's for sure. And you can hold that over their heads for a long time. And it's impressive that you did that. So now we'll back up. I mean, you came from Chicago, Mount Carmel High School, right? I mean, there were some pretty good names that came out of Mount Carmel when I was doing a little research. Guys as varied from Denny McClain to Simeon Rice and Antoine Walker, all graduates.
Donovan
McNabb was another name that I had seen, yeah. Is there anybody else I missed?
I can't. His name just escapes me, and I don't want to mess it up, but he was a big offensive tackle, and I know it's what. Cornish. Frank Cornish.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yep, junior.
That's pretty impressive. So obviously you had the talent in high school, and I believe I read when I was reading an article about you getting your doctorate and such. You weren't a person that particularly liked school and learning at the time, but you had some talent to get you to college, and you started out not at the NCAA, Division I level. You started out with a year in
junior college,
and what did you think? Did you always think that you were going to make it to NCAA, 1AA?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was a high school All-American. So I knew I had the talent, but it wasn't like I think what kids go through today, that thought process about, I'm this, I'm that, and I can do that. It was just, I love playing ball at that time. I didn't know what college really had to offer, to be honest with you. It wasn't until I was in my late junior and senior year that I realized I really could go to college. I become a high school All-American, and by then I'd gone to Al McGuire's camp, Ray Myers' camp, and I was like, hey, they want me, and I think I could play at the next level. And I was not a great student. And I'll tell you a funny story. When I walked off the stage, getting my doctorate, there was my mom, obviously my wife, but my mom was standing right there, and she gives me this big hug, and she says, and just think, you hated school. I said, no, Mom, I hate it now. I didn't just hate it then, I hate it now. I just wondered why always was school so important for people to go to school. I hated it. I did what I needed to do because I was a ball player. And then obviously I came to the realization in college and actually my junior year, sophomore year, okay, what are you going to do when you leave school? You're going to have to get a job. That was my thought process. And so I began to take it a little bit more serious at that point.
Well, it's impressive that it came to you that soon. I'm sure a lot of guys in your position, it didn't come to that soon. It didn't come to them until they're into their professional career or even afterwards, right? And
yeah,
too late then.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we're faced with athletes today, because they come into our league so early. They're introduced to the game and all of the things that the basketball offer you. Even playing AAU ball in high school, it offers you so much that you begin to believe that this is going to be my life, and that's just not the case for most guys. And so you don't take your education as important as you should. And then next thing you know, maybe you don't make it through college. This coach doesn't treat you right. At least that's what you say. You got to transfer your talent. You don't improve, right? Next thing you know, you're back at home. Or you make it to the league and you have a decent career, but you don't take advantage of the programs that we offer for you to go back to school. And when you're done, you look at 7 years I played in the NBA, and now I still don't have a degree, and my skills is feeding the post. Nobody's looking for somebody to feed the post. Google's not looking for somebody to feed the post or shoot the three. And so you're kind of starting all over, at that point. So yeah, that's a real challenge even today, to get young people to understand that your education is still important.
Yeah, one of the articles I'd read that had quoted you similarly to what you just said about feeding the post. I think you said, so you average 13 and 10, but IBM's not going to ask you anything about that when you're interviewing, right? So
That's true. You think Google needs somebody who's 13 and 13, right? For what, man? They want you to be creative, come up with some other technology that they can use and make billions of dollars.
Right. Well, it's impressive that you're in a position now to help young men who are making lots and lots of money, a lot more than you probably thought people would be making playing basketball back in your day, and teach them some skills to hang on to that money and live a vital life outside of basketball too.
That's what it comes down to, seriously, that basketball is going to end at some point. Your life after basketball, the quality of it is certainly dependent upon how you prepared before you got there.
Yeah.
I always tell guys when they come into the league, I got to get on another one tonight, a virtual call with our rookies, since we can't meet them in person. But, it's hard for young players to understand that they have to look forward, right? You have to think about it because it's going to come to an end, and you don't want it to hit you like a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
You say, okay, I'm playing basketball. They're paying me a lot of money. What am I going to want to do when I can't bounce that ball anymore? My career's over. Money will give you a little leeway, right? So you got a little bit of equity built up. But a lot of guys don't have that money built up like that to live the same lifestyle that is. And so you got to be prepared for that opportunity when it comes. And then when it comes, you got to say, I'm doing this, this, and this. I've met everybody over here. They know me. I've been educated in this field, and I'm transitioning pretty smooth to go to my next level.
Yeah, it's good that young men need people like you to help them and down that path. So I'm so happy to see that you're doing that. And I'm also happy that it allows you to play so much golf, as I'm kidding you all the time. When I started following you on Facebook and you were graciously enough to accept me as a Facebook friend, I have to comment every time I see you on the golf course because you got this giant smile and a giant cigar. And
Right.
I joke with you when I comment that I'm living my life vicariously through Lloyd Walton because that's who I want to be when I grow up.
Well, look, Keith, honestly, man, I wish I had taken up the game early. I remember, do you remember Austin Carr?
Oh, absolutely.
So while we were in the NBA, Austin tried to get me to go play golf, to teach me how to play. And I refused to do it for whatever reason. I found so many other things that I thought was important. But I regret not picking up the game early on because I absolutely love the game. And I know you can play till you're 80 practically.
Right.
I absolutely love the game, but I like to get better each and every summer, right? And I am getting better, much better than I was when I started. But, you know, it's a beautiful thing. I get out there, I have a stogie, I can talk a little crap with my friends. You know, that's what it's for. You know, we rarely gamble. You know, we're not like Barkley and Michael. So
Right.
we get out there and have a little fun every now and then, maybe buy lunch or Coke or something.
That's awesome. And again, I love seeing those posts because when I see them, it puts a smile on my face all the time as I'm working and I see a post of you and whatever buddy you're playing golf with. And I'm like, oh my, this guy, I gotta find my way to Lloyd Walton's level.
You got to do it, Keith. You got to do it.
So listen, you mentioned Michael Jordan. And I think I might start a rumor here on this during this interview that framed jersey behind you beat Michael Jordan playing one-on-one, and that's how you got that jersey. Probably no truth to that.
There's no truth whatsoever. That particular one, he gave me, and he said it's going to be of value someday. So he didn't say to Lloyd. He just signed it. It's certified. And then there's one a little further down, and that one, a picture of him. That's the one that he signed. Hey, to Lloyd, thank you very much for all you do. Because I worked for him for 3 years.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Well, let's jump backwards in time now. So you're in community college and you're getting recruited by big time schools now. I'm sure Marquette, DePaul. You mentioned Ray Meyer before. I'm sure dozens of schools. What was there a preference that you had? Was Marquette always your preference, or did you have other things in mind?
Well, when I went to the junior colleges, because I didn't qualify,
mm-hmm.
I really didn't know. I always wanted to go to Marquette ever since I had gone to Al McGuire's camp as a junior. So going to the junior college, my thinking was that I was probably going to be there 2 years. Well, the coach that recruited me there, they were going to fire him after the season was over, when the season was over. And I didn't particularly like it. My high school coach, Tony Baroni, God rest his soul, I wrote him a letter and asked him if Marquette was still interested. And, he wrote me back and said they most certainly are. And then my thought process changed that I had to figure a way to get to Marquette. And so that's how I wound up there. But, Missouri was coming at me hard because Moberly isn't in Missouri. I just thought, like, I want to go where I really want to go, right? Not where I have to go. And when Marquette said, we want you, it was like, okay, that's it. Now, it's a deeper story than that, but because I thought that Marquette didn't really want me. So I was going to go actually to Florida. In fact, I had a plane ticket, okay? Now, the summer goes by, so now it's time to go to school in August. And I don't feel like Al is really coming at me. I don't feel like Marquette's really coming at me. 2 days before I leave for Florida, the phone starts ringing, jumping off the hook. Here's all of Al's friends, and Al's calling my mom saying, we really want you. And what I didn't realize was that, until much later on, was that they were trying to figure out a way to get me in school because, remember, I hadn't qualified, right? So they found this program for African Americans, first generation going to college, that they would pay for your schooling at least 1 year. That's all I needed. Then I would go to scholarship.
Right.
So that's what happened when I finally heard the story. I said, well, you guys should have told me. I'm getting ready to get on a plane and what have you. I don't know. Do you remember Rick Majerus?
Oh, yes. I was going to ask you. I got a couple of questions for you about him, too.
Let me tell you this. Al said, we really want you, and Rick Majerus is coming to pick you up. So the next day, Rick comes to pick me up, and he says, I'm going to take you to the airport, and I'll meet you in Milwaukee. So I said, look, man, I'm not getting on no plane. you told me it was only like 90 minutes away. We can drive. He said, but it's against the NCAA rules. I was like, I don't care. I'm not going on a plane. He says, okay, Rick loved to eat.
Oh, yeah.
So Rick asked my mom, where's the best pizza joint? So she told him. He goes by, gets a large pizza, gets some Cokes, and we eat pizza and drink Coke on the drive to Milwaukee. And that's how it started.
Oh, that's awesome. And, I obviously know Rick Majerus and Hank Raymond's. When I was a younger man, a little bit younger than you, probably not that much younger than you, but when I started following college basketball, and it was a different world in college basketball then, right? March Madness wasn't the craze that it is today. For whatever reason, I gravitated to these Marquette teams that I read about in Sports Illustrated. They weren't on my TV here in upstate New York every weekend, right?
Right.
But I read these articles about Coach McGuire, and really the teams that you started out on were the teams that I started to follow. Okay. The team that went to the final in your sophomore year, I think, right? 74.
Yep.
And the teams that followed right up until they won the championship. God, it wasn't a year after you left, was it? It was, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, that stinks a little bit. But obviously, Coach McGuire left after that. But they were great teams. You obviously stepped in and played with some great players like Maurice Lucas, a tremendous player, Bo Ellis, Earl Tatum, just a couple of names that come to the top of my mind. Talk to me a little bit about those teams. I mean, they were tremendous teams, and the game was different then. Marquette was an independent. You had scheduling was a whole lot different. Yeah. Talk to me about those times and the rivals. Who were your rivals and things like that?
Our rivals were the other independents, DePaul, Loyola, Notre Dame. Those were, there were some smaller schools that were independent as well. So you actually, because you'd get an automatic bid if you won at the conference level, right? So you couldn't afford to lose more than 1 or 2 games as an independent if you really wanted to get in, because at that point in time, they were only taking 32 teams.
Right.
And so it was always a struggle. It wasn't a struggle because we'd always win. Seriously, we would always win. I mean, I finished there with a record of 74-11 as a 3-year starter. But that was always the challenge. And DePaul always had a good team. Notre Dame had a good team. So those were our rivals. You remember Digger Phelps and Al used to go at it all the time. Oh, yeah. Right? So, but yeah, I played with some great guys. Probably my closest and dearest friend was Maurice Lucas. And Bo Ellis and I roomed together for a year. Butch Lee and I roomed together for a year. So yeah, these were some special times for me.
Yeah, great teams. And talk to me about Coach McGuire. I mean, what was your relationship like with him? He was a different kind of guy, right? I mean, Coach, obviously he had an explosive side. He was a great coach. What was it like for you in your relationship with him?
So people ask me, if you could identify a coach today, who would he be? And I say he'd be half Calipari and half Mike Krzyzewski. Okay. Very disciplined, had a lot of swag, knew how to relate to his players, truly wanted the best for his players on and off the court. And it started with him that you was going to get your degree. And that's what really actually sold my mom, that you were going to get your degree. And even there were some guys who went 4 years and didn't get their degree, but he allowed them to come back. Marquette paid for it if they had one more year and they were in good standing. So my relationship with him was, it wasn't hate, but it was difficult sometimes. We would go at it. I mean, face to face. But at the end of the day, I always had the kind of respect that I knew he had the last word, period.
Yeah.
And, I gave him that respect. He wanted to hear what you had to say. Him and I were much alike. And that's my greatest regret, honestly, is that Coach McGuire, Hank Raymond's, and Rick Majerus weren't here around to see what I've accomplished in life, because they were instrumental, a huge part of it. And there was nothing that I loved more than if they were here to actually see me become a doctor.
Yeah, that would have been a special moment, I'm sure. And it's a shame that, again, they're all gone and at fairly young age, really, especially Rick Majerus.
Yeah.
Quite a shame. And your relationship with Coach McGuire, it's funny. I mean, I would guess that a lot of the players had a very similar relationship with Coach McGuire. I mean, I know Bedard Toon was a guy that I remember when I was watching those teams that he always seemed to be screaming at him. But I would think a lot of the guys had the same type of relationship.
Well, I think, because everybody has a different personality.
Yeah.
And I think Coach and our relationship was so different because I was the coach on the floor, right? So we had to communicate probably a lot more than anybody else. And there were just times, and he was a great motivator, but sometimes the method and the communication that he would use to motivate you really turned me off. And then I always had something to say.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had a chance to read when we played the semifinals against North Carolina State. An NCAA tournament, and him and I got into this huge argument at halftime. We were playing Kansas, actually. We get into this huge argument where he's talking about, we weren't playing hard and we weren't doing this. And I'm like, we worked our butts off to get here, and we're here because we worked hard, and I'm taking off my uniform. This is at halftime. And by the end of halftime, obviously him and I make up, and we go out and, we run away from Kansas. But I love the guy, man. And I look back on it, and all I can say is, honestly, Keith, I was immature.
I mean, was it his way of motivating you and others, just saying you guys are no good today, you're stinking it up out there?
Absolutely. He would always do it. He would do it to everybody. I would give it back to him. Bernard Toon would give it back to him. Bo never said anything. He just took it. Butch never said anything. They just went out and played. So it was different people, different personalities.
I kind of doubt Lucas sat back and took it too much, though, did he?
I mean, Luke didn't say very much because it wasn't his personality. He just played.
Yeah.
He just played. And I'll tell you, Luke told me when I got there, I couldn't play the first year, and pulled me to the side and told me, and asked me, he told me, I don't know why they brought you here. We got enough good guards. And so this is the honest God truth. I have it in my book. I looked him directly in the eye and I said, well, I think you better find out which one's not going to start, because I'm starting every year. And I started every year.
You did.
Yeah.
You're an integral part of those teams for sure. We talked about the NCAA tournament, the year you beat Kansas in the semifinals, and obviously you meet North Carolina State in the final. And it's a really good game. I don't know how old I was then. 16 years old. I guess I was 16 years old. So you're a little, like I said, you're a few years older than me, not a lot.
Yeah.
But I remember watching that game, and you guys were toe and toe with them. And obviously a few things happened, and Coach McGuire kind of blew a fuse or two. Did anybody ever say, gosh, Coach, you cost us that game? Did that ever cross anybody's mind? Or
No, because he got us there. He got us there.
Yeah.
We would never abandon ship because of something like that. What happened was Bo, and they didn't think players were that athletic, of course, back then. And I forgot who took the shot, and Bo snatched it out the air, and they called goaltending. And Coach McGuire blew a fuse.
Yeah.
And I think at that point in time, and I don't know, because it took me 34 years to look at the tape. Okay, that's how long it took. But I think we went from being down 1 or 2, something like that. By the time it was over at halftime, we were down by 7 or something like that. And
that sounds about right.
Yeah, we never really got our footing after that. And I looked at like I said, I looked at the tape, and they were just dominating us defensively. They were up in us. We took us out of our plays and stuff like that. So they won the game. And hey man, we played better in other games. This game we just didn't play better, and I'd have to give them credit.
Yeah, they were certainly a very talented team, too. It isn't like you lost to the Little Sisters of the Poor. That was a great team. They beat UCLA, who'd won how many years in a row before that?
Yeah, that's the crazy part, that when we beat Kansas, we were in the locker room. Everybody was like, hurry up, change, let's get dressed so we can go out and watch UCLA, because we believed they were going to win, and we were going to play them in the finals. Like you said, UCLA had won, 10, 11 championships at that point. So we look forward to, playing against them, and next thing you know, they get upset, and we don't know who the hell North Carolina State is. It's not like we had ESPN and all that stuff. We don't know. David Thompson guy. What, David Thompson? Tom Burleson, Monty Toe, Tim Stoddard, and they were more than a formidable foe. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
what was it like when you because like you said, you weren't aware who these guys were. When you stepped on the floor and watched David Thompson for the first time, I mean, did your jaw drop? I mean, how do you react? Maybe not at that point because you're competitive nature, but what was the reaction?
Our confidence is a huge part of individual success and team success. So we watched the film, and I remember it was Rick's game to explain, the strategy, what we're going to do, and who was going to guard David, and which was assigned to Marcus Washington. But we didn't think that we couldn't beat them. We just felt like, they had a good team. This is really us finding out about them in the film session. But I can't remember saying, oh, man, wow, we got to watch this guy. It was just like, oh, David Thompson, their best guy. Every team always had a best guy that one of us had to guard. So we're gonna do that. And Lord have mercy, was he good? And, I mean, he was good. But then you got a 7'4" center, so they just dominated us. Tim Stoddard went on to play, Major League Baseball. They were just really, really ready for us, and they played in their own backyard.
Right. And you after that year, you had 2 more years at Marquette after that.
Yeah.
Still really good teams. I mean, you lose, I don't know, 1-2 games one year and 3 games another.
What happened was the next year Luke left.
Right.
Right. And so we did not feel that void. Right. Even though we were a good team, we weren't a team that was probably going to win a championship because we weren't big enough. Our center was Jerry Holman, which was about 6'6" guy who couldn't jump. And so we wind up losing to Kentucky in the regional. And I'll never forget, and I was telling Kevin Greavy, who played on that team along with Rick and others, they just beat the hell out of us. They were so damn big and strong. They just dominated us. There was nothing we could do. And, honestly, I'm usually feeling really bad after a loss. I didn't feel that bad because they were just so much bigger than us, stronger than us. And so that's the reason why they went out and got some more firepower and Jerome Whitehead the next year.
Yeah, and again, it's not even the next year. I think it was the next year. You did go out in the regional, or maybe it was a regional final. I don't remember, but again, against another great team in Indiana.
It was a regional final, and if you remember, Keith, this is the part that I hated about it. So they put Indiana was ranked number 1 in the country, and Marquette was ranked number 2. So why would you put us in the same region? Makes no sense, right? Yeah. They should have put us in a different region than them as a number 1 seed, left Indiana in the Midwest probably as the number 1 seed, and hope that you get the number 1 and number 2 team into the championship. So they got the championship in the regional instead of in the championship, the national.
Yeah, in those times though, Lloyd, weren't they more likely to keep teams in their region? Unlike, once we got into the 80s and certainly today, they move teams all over the country. Number one, Duke could go out west, Syracuse has been out west. And at that time, weren't they keeping teams a little bit more in their region?
Now, what? I'll be honest with you. I never even thought about that. I never looked at that. That may be the case. Yeah. It may be the case because I only thought about that, years later. Like, why would they put the 1 team and number 2 team in the same? Yeah. Maybe that was the reason why back then that they would keep you because maybe teams didn't travel as well. Yeah. Right? Their fans and what have you. That might have been the case.
It might have been. It would have been interesting if Indiana and Marquette had met in that final instead of that Michigan team for sure.
Man, I think about that all the time. Quinn Buckner and I became teammates with the Bucks, right? Yeah. So we always talked about that. He had the up on me, and I remember that game like it was yesterday. And we should have won that game. You remember certain parts. I remember Bernard Toon making a steal in the second half. And we're down 1, and he steals the ball. Instead of after stealing it, just pulling up and giving it to me or Bush as the guards, he tries to dribble and he loses it. God damn, man, you were right there, So
it's funny how those things stick with you.
That's right.
40 some years later. So
I'm looking at him right now, screaming.
Do you see many of your old teammates, the college teammates these days?
I see Bo. Butch and I communicate regular. His son is a freshman at Fairfield College. Saw some tape on him. Euless Payne and I communicate on a regular basis. Just talked the other day. Have to talk actually Friday. But that's about the extent of it.
So do Bo and Butch, lord their championship over you at all, or how's that work out?
They don't have to say anything.
Yeah,
they don't have to say anything, man, because as you know, they lost more games. They lost 7 games that year.
Yeah, at the time it was a record for most losses.
Right.
Yeah.
I only lost 11 games, right? It started in 3 years. They lost 7 doggone games, and me and Butch and Bo both have said the best team that Marquette ever had was the team we had in '76. Yeah, and it was. We just didn't win. They got on a roll. I certainly didn't think that they were going to win a championship. Come on now. But they got on the roll. They started playing well, and it happened almost right after Al said he was going to retire.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. I mean, that's one of the great stories, I think, in NCAA history, that the coach, a revered coach like Coach McGuire, announces before the tournament he's going to quit. And they go on this unbelievable roll. And they had some unbelievable games in that run. I mean, in the semifinals against Charlotte.
Right?
Some crazy stuff was going on.
Right? Cornbread, yeah. Jerome Whitehead tips it in at the buzzer. Yeah.
I mean, the stars had to align, right? And I know you were following that team closely. And like you said, it wasn't a team people thought was going to win. I mean, I'm sure North Carolina, I certainly wasn't looking at point spreads in that point in my life, but I guarantee you they were a big favorite in that game.
Yeah, I remember I was with the Bucks when they played for the championship, and Nelly let me off for the day. I flew down to watch the championship, and I couldn't be happier. Only way I could have been happier is if I had played in the game. I was so happy for Coach McGuire, and I was so happy for the guys who I played with, Butch, Bo, those kind of guys, man, because we know those things don't happen very often.
Yeah, and as I said, being a fan at that point in time, I did wish that yourself and Mo Lucas and some of the others could have been part of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let me ask you, so you graduate, or maybe you didn't graduate, but you ended your time. I think you graduated later on, if I remember the story. You got Coach Raymond talked you coming back into getting your degree. But
demanded that I come back.
Demanded, nice.
Yeah, I came home one day, and this was after I played in the league, and I stopped by my mom's, actually, and she said, Coach Raymond is looking for you. I was like, well, what do you want? She said, just call him. He wants to talk to you. I called him and says, hey, get your so-and-so back up here and finish 5 credit hours. And one of the best things that ever happened to me. I got my butt back up there. Again, as I shared earlier, that Marquette paid for it. You were in good standing. They paid for it. I got the 5 hours. I got my degree, and life began to change in a different way, knowing I had that when I needed to go out in the workforce and start looking for a job. I had a degree, something to stand on. So, yeah.
And that started you on the path that you're on now.
Yeah, that's the crazy part, man. I mean, seriously,
life's funny. Little things, right? If you don't stop your moms that day, maybe you never get the message. Who knows?
Man, and I mean, school, I didn't. And the thing about now, when I got my doctorate, that whole process of studying and research, I loved it. I loved it. Even when, years before then, when I went back to school to get my master's, I was in it. I loved it. I don't know why, during my college and high school years that I didn't. But I hated school with a passion almost. But when I got out of school as an adult with a family, and maybe because of priorities and things like that, I knew I wanted it, and I knew I had to go get it if I wanted to take care of my family. So it changed everything.
That's awesome. Well, when you did leave school, you did get drafted into the NBA, which is, again, an achievement because there's only so many players that can be in the NBA at any one time. I think you were a 3rd-round pick by the Bucks, right?
The 40th pick in the draft.
That's impressive. And what was it like? I mean, you went from, I think you played for Larry Costello when you first got drafted, right? God. And I was wondering what the, I I'll find out. It was one of the coaches you didn't mention as being a inspiration in your life is Larry Costello.
Larry was an old school guy, man. And, he had played with Wilt Chamberlain and won an NBA championship. And he was known to be tough on young guys, but tough on players in general. Honestly, he had a playbook about that thick. And we're talking about basketball. And I know that there's two things that happened. I remember, and you're being out there on the court and we're practicing, and he would just stop practice and ask you something. So one day he stopped practice and say, "Walton, what do you do with so-and-so, so-and-so?" I was a deer in headlights. I just froze, right? I couldn't remember now. I knew the play. I couldn't remember. And I remember we were in training camp. I went to his room that night, knocked on the door, and he answered. I said, "Coach, I know the plays. It's just shocking." He said, "I know you know, but you got to know at 7 o'clock at night when the game's going on." So that was one thing. And the other thing was we had a trainer named Tony Spino. I got hurt in training camp. Ran into junior years and had a bad leg injury. Just bruised, but bad leg injury. And Tony Spino told me 2 years ago that every day Costello would come into the training room and ask him, "Well, how's Walton doing?" He said, "He's not ready yet." And his response was, "Well, get his ass ready so I can cut him."
Oh, jeez.
I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, he wanted to get rid of you." I was like,
Well, I guess that's all I need to know about that relationship. Well, fortunately for you, he wasn't around long. I think he only lasted 18 or 20 games of your rookie year, didn't he?
18, maybe 15, something like that.
Yeah.
And they let him go. Yeah.
And they hired
Nelly.
Nelson, who I assume you had a better relationship with Coach Nelson.
I had a great relationship with Nelly. I forget, things stick out. I'll never will forget when he got the job and he walked into the gym that day and said, "The shit has hit the fan, guys. It's going to be different." And it was different. In fact, I talked to Nelly. He talks about some things in my book. Should be out in about 60 days.
What is it? What's the name of the book?
The book is named First and 40. Let me just show you the copy. I got it right here.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. So, Keith, here's the book, First and 40.
Awesome.
And the title, First and 40, comes from me being the first male child born in my family in 40 years. Okay.
Really?
There's a picture on the cover with 10 women and one male, and that was my great-grandfather, right? My great-grandfather. None of those women had any male children. My grandmother, who had my mother, had me, and I was the first one in 40 years. But Nelly's in here and talks, Wayne Emery's in here. So I got quite a few people. Michael Wilbon did the forward. So yeah, I think it's pretty interesting.
Where is it? Will be available on the Amazon, I take it? And
Amazon.
Okay, great. I'm glad. And I'll make mention of that when we do some promos for this show.
Okay, sure.
So Coach Nelson comes in. He turns the team around pretty good. Maybe not that first year, but you guys start winning.
Well,
let me ask you that first, actually, before I go there. What was it like going from college atmosphere where you lost 11 games in your entire career to, probably losing, 11 games in 2 months?
It was new to most of us because when you look at it, Quinn, right? Buckner, Indiana.
Yeah.
Alex English, South Carolina. Myself. I can't remember who else was on that team who had just come in, but this was all new to us. Neither one of us were used to losing. But they told us we're pros now and things are a little bit different. So we had to suck it up, but we were not happy campers because we were losing every other night.
Yeah.
It was just totally different. But the thing that Nelly did was change the culture immediately. And what I mean by that was that he changed the attitude that we would have, and the way we would play. He demanded that we're going to play hard. He came in after 18 games we just talked about, and he said, we're going to make teams feel coming in here for the rest of the year, whether we win the game or not. They're going to come in here and think they're just going to run over us. We're going to run their ass to death. We're going to play them defensively as tough as anybody. And then we're going to set the tone so people know when you come here, it's no easy win. And we all bought into that. And so that's how the culture began to change, and that's how the winning started with Milwaukee again.
Yeah, it wasn't long after you got, obviously the team back in the playoffs, and in just a couple of years in the conference championship, I think. Were you part of that team still?
Yep.
You were, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we lost in the conference championship. The one that I remember more vividly is we were in the West, just like and we played Seattle.
Yeah.
We lost in Game 7 to go to the championship. Game 7, man.
You had some great teams that just never quite got over the hump. You played with great players there. I mean,
yeah.
Talk about the guys you played with at Marquette, but you played with Bob Dandridge and Marcus Johnson, and I mean, we could probably go on and on. Norm Van Leer.
Norm played with us. Was somebody who I idoled when I was in high school and college.
Yeah.
Marcus Johnson and I still communicate. We play golf at least once a year, our anniversary year. I named my son after Marcus. And then Bob Lanier, Alex English, who I mentioned.
Yeah.
Great players. Sidney Moncrief, right? That's 3 Hall of Famers right there.
Yeah, I forgot about Sidney Moncrief. How did I forget him? That's funny. He's the kind of player that you kind of he was such a great player.
Yeah, right.
He doesn't come up in conversation off the top of your head as what a great player he was.
He doesn't. Isn't that crazy how some players just kind of go up under the radar no matter how good they are?
It is. As soon as you said that, I'm like, how could I leave that guy's name out? That's terrible.
Yeah.
But it's also a testament to him, right? That how great a player he was at all, doing everything, not great at one thing.
Right.
That's just my opinion.
No, you got a good opinion about him. That's for sure.
So, and then so you spent a few years there, and you go on to Kansas City, and it's amazing. You played for some very, very interesting coaches, from Coach McGuire to Larry Costello, Don Nelson, and you finally end up with Cotton Fitzsimmons, who's a character himself. Tell me a little bit about him.
Well, Cotton and I connected because Cotton had coached at Moberly Junior College. So he knew me. And the fact of the matter is that I actually called him, and I said, hey, look, JoJo White was finishing his career with the Kings, and he retired like 10 games in.
Yeah.
And I saw it. So I called Cotton. I said, hey, man, I'm available. He said, well, hey, let's do it. Come on. And that's how it started with him. But Cotton was Cotton was a motivator, and I think about, his strategies. He didn't have a whole lot of strategies, in my opinion, okay? He was just motivating guys. I mean, he wanted you to play hard and play tough, but he didn't have a whole lot of strategy to it, man. Get up and down the floor. Play with some great guys there. Phil Ford, Otis Birdsong, Scott Wedman, Sam Lacey.
Yeah.
Yep. So I've been very good with the teammates, honestly.
It's funny you mentioned Cotton Fitzsimmons, and not a lot of X's and O's, but my gosh, he hung around forever. He coached almost every team in the league, it felt like.
Yeah, he was at Atlanta, Phoenix, right? So he probably got 15 to 20 years out of the deal, right? You think?
Oh, at least, yes. Yes, he's got a lot of wins, man, for a guy who just kind of talked the game.
And that's what he's good at. That's what running his mouth. Oh my God. Hey, but he gave me a shot, so I can't complain.
Well, that's good. So you I don't know what you were in the league 5-6 years. I'm going to say, not a bad. I mean, heck, a lot of guys have not played 5 or 6 years in the NBA, so that's an accomplishment. Is there anything that stands out to you that maybe kept you from being a better player, or were you the player you could have been in the NBA, or could have been more?
Let me make this commitment to you. When the book comes out, I'm going to send you a copy, and then we're going to talk about it. Okay. I'll just say this to answer your question, and you can figure it out or just wait. I should have been a much better player. I should have played 10 years easily in the league. So I'll just leave it as that. But everything, I've been very transparent in the book about who I am, things that I chose to do versus things that I should have done. So yeah, that's life.
Well, we'll read it in the book then. That's fair enough. And you got to leave a little teaser for some people to read in the book, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm going to promote it. We're going to promote this. It's a good thing that we did do this recorded, I think, now, because now I'll be able to kind of promote the book a little bit that I didn't know about beforehand. So that's good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Because I look forward to it. Anybody I have on, I say, you got a book you're writing, just send it to me. I want to read it. I try to read them before I get people on. It's not always easy to keep up, and because they do have a real job these days too. And it's, as I told you in the email, when I had messed up the link because I closed the broadcast studio and I had to send you a new one. And I said it's a little hard to multitask plus 60. And maybe you can relate, maybe you can't. I don't know, but these days, man, my wife thinks I'm absolutely nuts. I end up in a room, don't know why I'm there.
Well, you know what? I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm going to the garage and back in the house at least 2 or 3 times every day because I forget something.
For no apparent reason.
Now, that only happens every now and then when I wonder, like, why did I come back in here, right?
Yeah, she gets on me because I'm constantly starting projects. Like when it's nice in the summertime, I'm working around the house. I'll start like 5 different projects and I don't finish any of them because I just get distracted by something else. It's not that I don't want to finish it. I'm not a procrastinator. I just go around the corner and I go, oh, wait, I wanted to do this too. So I've got 5 things going at once and I don't finish any of them. It's terrible. It's terrible. So let me ask you. So actually, I can't wait to read, about the NBA career further. And who knows, maybe we'll have you back on. There might be more stories we can dive into once we've got the book to talk about and dive into that.
You can determine that. And I think you will, because there's some good ones.
Yeah, good. So your career ends. You start, I believe, you start doing some coaching then. You did some assistant coaching for Coach Majerus. And you had some other positions, scouting for the Knicks. Did you have aspirations to coach as a career, or was it just?
Man, I did. I did with Coach Majerus, which was good. I just couldn't make any money at that time. And I had a baby and I had one on the way, and so I had to make more money. So I came back to Chicago and got a real job. Years later, I took a job as an assistant coach in back then the Continental League, and I thought I would be able to, kind of maybe get a job at the NBA level within a couple years. But it folded in my first year. I was with the Lacrosse Bobcats in Lacrosse, Wisconsin. That's back when Isaiah Thomas owned the league. Mm-hmm. So, 30 games in, something like that, they give us a call and said, hey, the league is folding. We're done. And after that, I was like, okay, I'm not going to do this. This is a young man's deal. I'm not going to run around looking for a job and all that. I'm going to settle in and get a real job, something that I like to do. And that's what I did.
It's funny, isn't it, the Continental, that it kind of developed into the CBA that, some great coaches came out of the CBA, like Phil Jackson and,
George Karl.
Name from North Carolina.
George Karl,
thank you.
Yeah.
They both coached here in Albany.
Yeah.
Had great teams.
That's the structure, the initial structure that went to becoming the G League, then the D League and what have you. But yeah.
Right.
A good league, and you're right. Some of the coaches and some of the players got their start there.
Yeah.
And to advance to the NBA.
Yeah. Mario Ellie's one guy that sticks in my mind, who played here in Albany and played on some championship teams in Houston. So
he certainly did. There's
a lot of guys. It's funny. In the NBA, probably more than any of the other professional leagues, just because of the size of the rosters. I mean, there's got to be so many great players that slip through the cracks, for whatever reason.
Yeah, certainly back then it was. Now, we're talking about 15 players now, being able to sign 2-way contracts, right? Which means you can go play with the affiliate and come back and play with the team in the NBA. The opportunity is there now. Just so much better now for them than it's ever been. The salaries, the travel, the whole nine is so much better for them now. If you don't make it now, you just don't make it. You can't blame a whole lot on coaches and environment and all that. There's so many opportunities to play, man. So, if you got the talent, you're probably going to make it at some point.
Do you have any regrets that you came along too soon?
Only when I know how much a guy has made.
That's what I mean, yeah. I mean, even in a 5 or 6 year career, you would have made a whole lot of money if you came out today.
Look, I'd be a role player, making $7-8 million a year, right? You put 4 or 5 years on that, and you're good.
Then you wouldn't be on my show though either. So you gotta weigh the good and the bad, Lloyd.
Yeah.
You get this guy who wants to live vicariously through your golf game, or millions of dollars.
Man, yeah. Things evolve, you know.
I know it's not that tough a choice.
Life is, man. I always say life is, man. You just never know.
No, I got, going back to the story you told about Hank Raymond's calling your mom, and if you hadn't stopped your mom's, I have this theory that we're always where we're supposed to be at that very moment in life for things to happen, and,
We are. We truly are. I'm reading this book now by a guy named Jay Shetty, Shetty. And the title of it is, excuse me, Think Like a Monk. He's a young guy, but he became a monk for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one story he tells about. I don't want to bore you with the story, but the bottom line was that this guy.
I think you're boring me with any story. Go ahead.
This guy understood that whatever happens is supposed to happen, what you just said. So he was talking about how his son, the guy's son, was called to go to war, and the day before he was called to go to war, the cow kicked him and broke his leg. And his brother said, "Oh, what a shame! Your son broke his leg." He said, "No, it's just the way it's supposed to be because he's not going to the service, right?" And then he just goes on. It's like 4 or 5 different things happen, and they all turned out initially like it was something bad, and at the end, it was something that worked out in his favor. And I've had this. I'm really cognizant of this now, and I think about things that happen. I'm saying like, okay, this is the way it's supposed to be for a reason. Don't fight it. Live it, deal with it, and it's going to work out. But you're so true, man. Everything turns out the way it's supposed to. You can't fight these things. If you fight it, then things become unaligned with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great message for the kids you deal with, I'm sure, today. Whether it resonates with them at that age, I don't know. Sometimes you got to get to our age to understand everything that happened back then. Now I understand it.
Keep your, you know what? You're absolutely right. I think young people, that's too, that doesn't make any sense to them. Okay. I think about this. I'll tell you what, as you know, Marquette, what we did, we had a very deliberate offense. We walked the ball up the floor, and people don't really understand how deliberate it was, but it was this deliberate. The only way we could run on a fast break is if we stole the ball. If we got the rebound, there's nobody down court, we couldn't run. We had to walk it down court.
Mm-hmm.
So Al McGuire was able to convince guys like me from the inner city, right, these thoroughbreds up and down, to come play for him. And I think about this, what kind of player would I have been if I'd gone to a school that went up and down where I was able to show my talent, right? But I also think about, look at my life now. It's not so bad. Doesn't mean I would have had a better life just because we did that. Okay, I got a great wife, she's a doctor, has her doctorate, much smarter than me,
They always are, Lloyd.
I got a great gig for the most part. I got my health and all that, my grandkids, all that stuff. So things happen the way they were supposed to happen. I could have went to North Carolina or something and run them down the floor and became a good player and not made it in the NBA for whatever reason.
Yeah, or you could have become a huge star and you wouldn't be in the position where you're helping out young guys today and helping them to keep their lives straight and, prepare for life after the game.
Yeah, because I am passionate about this part. I really am.
Because that's an important thing. As great as it is, Magic Johnson is Magic Johnson and Larry Bird is Larry Bird. The Lloyd Waltons of the world are important in today's society because of the money that these guys are making and the life choices we don't want them to make, and you can help, guide them in the right direction. I think that's as important as Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and what they provided to the game.
I mean, absolutely. There's a place for everybody, and there's so many people we need. There's a void everywhere where somebody can help others, and that's my bottom line. How do I help others? Because as I shared before, there's nothing I accomplished in my life that people didn't help me. I'm serious. I couldn't have done any of the stuff that I've done on my own. And I'm so thankful to so many different people who didn't have to help me. I have to tell you this real quick.
Mm-hmm.
My family always wanted my life to be better no matter what. You know about all the women that were in my life. So I'm in high school, my freshman year, haven't gotten in any trouble, but my family is thinking like, this is not good enough. You got to be better, right? And they decide to send me to boarding school in North Carolina, my freshman year in high school. I go to boarding school. It's in the middle of the year. Go to boarding school, finish up that year. I come home that summer, and I'm trying to convince my mom to allow me to go back to the public school I was in. And she's like, no way, no way. Plus, you went half of the year, so you got some classes to make up in summer school. So I convinced her and make a deal with her that if I go back in the summer, take the 2 classes and get 2 A's, I'll be able to come back to go to the public school. She said, sure, because she didn't think I would be able to do it. I go to summer school, I get the 2 A's, and I come back. She allows me to go to the public school. I'm in the public school for the first month, and I'm out one night at a party, a kids' party. I'm only a sophomore in high school now. And I'm at this party in the basement, and the guy comes downstairs. He said, hey, man, this white guy's outside looking for you. I'm like, oh, shit. What did I do this time? I knew I hadn't done anything. So I walk outside to see this guy, and he's standing over in the shade. And he said, you remember me? And I'm like, yeah, I remember seeing you around. He says, look, you know, I'm the coach at Mount Carmel High School. And I went to your aunt's house, your aunt and uncle's house. We called your mom in the city of Chicago, and your grandma. We want to offer you a scholarship. They told me where I might be able to find you. So come get in the car with me. I was like, I don't know you that well. I'll meet you at my house. The bottom line, Keith, is that this man, they offered me a scholarship. I didn't want to go. My aunt, my mother, my grandmother forced me to go. He picked me up every single day, drove me 25 miles to school, and brought me home. It didn't only save my life, it changed my life. If I hadn't got that opportunity, right? And I fought it tooth and nail.
Well, that's a great story and a great moral for, again, for the people you're trying to impress today into doing the right thing. So I commend you for what you're doing. Listen, I've had a great time with you this hour. I still hope I get to play golf with you one day. You told me you were coming up on my way this year. I probably didn't make it because of COVID, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we know travel stopped basically.
Yeah.
How far
So
are you?
someday when you get up this way, we got to play golf.
I'd love to. I'd love to.
Not for money. You play too much, and I got a feeling, you know, you're holding back on me and exactly how good you are. So
yeah, I'm not bad, but I look forward to it.
And we'll get you on, and I'll we'll push the book a little bit. And if you want to come back on it sometime to push it harder, we'll do it. But listen, if I do have you back on, you got to promise that you'll open up a little bit. I mean, you're just too reserved, and you got to give me the real Lloyd Walton.
Hey, man,
You've been a great guest. I'm so happy you came on with me today, and I wish you well in the upcoming NBA season. And I know it's going to be a bit of a challenge. And you know, you're traveling. Yeah, I'm sure you've got to travel around a bit in your position. So be safe.
Thank you.
And I wish you well in that endeavor and going forward.
Thank you so much, Keith. Thank you for having me. Stay safe and healthy. All right.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being on today. My guest has been Lloyd Walton, former All-American at Marquette. He's now the senior counselor for the NBA Players Association. I don't know why I had trouble with that. I got it right on the screen here. I don't know why I had trouble with that before. 60 plus, Lloyd. Thanks again. Have a great night.
All right. You too.
Bye-bye. Stick around. Oh, you left. All right, guys. Keith Engel back. My guest today was Dr. Lloyd Walton. Put up a little banner here. What a great interview. Lloyd's a great guy. I mean, as you noticed or heard from my comments, I follow his exploits on Facebook. Then there's a lot of golf posted in the summertime, and he's just a happy guy playing golf, smiling, big smile, big cigar. I think he wants to take my money, though, so I got to be careful. Lloyd, listen, Lloyd played on some great Marquette teams, as I said earlier. I think 76-11. I couldn't come up with the record that they had that 3 years he was there. 3 trips to the NCAA's, great teams. Those teams could have made the Final Four every year, but they ran into some good Kentucky teams, an undefeated Indiana team. And then they finally made it to the Final Four in his last year. And I think, as we discussed in the interview, they actually won it the year after Lloyd was gone. And he played with some great players: Mo Lucas, Bo Ellis, Earl Tatum, Butch Lee, Jerome Whitehead, Bernard Toon, and you're playing for some of the greatest coaches in the history of the game, and Al McGuire, Rick Majerus, even Hank Raymond's had a good run in his short time as the head coach of Marquette. And then he plays for Don Nelson in the NBA. So, and he's doing some great things now with the players as a senior career counselor. And apparently he has his sights set on the president of the Players Association. Who knows what will happen in Dr. Walton's future? But he was a great interview. I enjoy following his exploits. He's a proud man, and he should be. He's made a great impact in his life. And I think he'll continue to do so. And I do hope he gets up here so we can play some golf. And when his book comes out, I'll certainly let you know about it. And we'll talk more about, maybe we'll have Lloyd back on, as I said, to talk about it. So listen, we got our show Sunday. Don't forget our show Sunday. We'll be on 9 a.m. Eastern time. We'll probably recap the bowl games, definitely the semifinals. Again, I've got some interest in some of the bowl games, but most of them I've had very little interest in unless I have a monetary interest, I guess. But we'll talk about the semifinals for sure. We'll certainly talk about the last week of the NFL season, some playoff ramifications of the games. A lot of strange stuff going on impacting not strange stuff. It's common. It's normal everyday stuff now with COVID. The Steelers or the Browns, I think, are going to be shorthanded against the Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger's not playing for the Steelers. Very interesting. It's going to be a very interesting weekend in football. So our pick should be easy to make this week. Also, next Friday, January 8th, 8 a.m. Eastern time, I've got Hal McCoy. Hal McCoy is covered Cincinnati Reds baseball from the Big Red Machine through Lou Piniello's championship team in 1990, the Marge Schott era. He was at the forefront of the whole Pete Rose investigation. Hal's got a lot of stories to talk about the Reds and Major League Baseball in general. And he's also a Spinks Award winner. He's a Sports Media Hall of Fame inductee. So I look forward to having Hal on next Friday, good grief, I wish it was July, January 8th at 8 a.m. Eastern time. Until then, you guys have a great New Year's Day. Lots of great football coming up today. Alabama, Notre Dame. I'm picking Notre Dame to at least cover the spread. I think they're going to give them a little game when people don't expect it. And then Clemson and Ohio State, the semifinals tonight. There's also some other good games to watch during the day. Whatever you do, enjoy it with your family. We'll see you next week. I'll see you Sunday, actually, with my show at 9 o'clock. I'll see you with an interview next week with Hal McCoy at 8 a.m. Eastern time on the 8th. And join us. Watch the shows. Go to Northeast Streaming Sports Network. Just put in Northeast Streaming Sports on Facebook. Go to the page. Watch some of the other shows. Follow the page. We're going to have some fun with it. It's going to grow. It's going to grow this show. And we're going to have some fun. So I thank all of you. Have a great new year. We're off to a big start. Bye-bye. Keith Engel, DGI Sports Talk. Bye.